We got two wayward children. There's one. We'll wait for one more to show up. That's a good way to get her started.
Testing, testing.
Drew, just stay up there and hold it.
Testing, testing, testing.
Hey.
Testing.
John.
You got all your notes in your
Testing, testing.
Well, the time's upon us, and we're going to start the work session. This is not an official meeting. It's not a public hearing. It's called for the express purpose of talking among the council members about the proposed budget, the mayor's proposed budget for this next fiscal year. I'm sure that there will be questions that will be asked of some department heads, so stay on the ready, folks. This time, I'm going to ask the mayor to give a general presentation on his budget, supported by Mr. Mosley, and then we'll open it up for questions from the council.
Thank you.
Okay, testing, testing, testing.
Hey, Mayor, if you don't speak into it, it won't be on here.
Okay.
Testing.
Why don't you just get a speak?
Testing. Testing.
Where they're back at.
Hello? Okay. First off, I want to thank everybody for coming out.
And I go ahead and start off again. Thanks everybody for coming out. I really do want to first off thank Lisa Thrash, Doug Mosley, all the department heads, all the city employees of the city of Brighton for really pulling together the last several months and helping out with this budget, helping the city out through the situation that we have been in. Because without them, and also the hard work of the council and myself, we would not, we would be in a shape that some other counties above us are in at this point in time. And I'm proud to say that we have actually, through a process of cross-training, multitasking, in general, just teamwork from one department to another, we have really been able to bring the city forward to the point that we're in now, that several months ago that was a very, very dark cloud over us. And I think that at this point in time, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. I do see us still having some difficult days ahead of us. But if we continue on the path that we're going as we speak right now, still being very, very mindful of every dollar that we're receiving and making certain that that dollar is spent in its wisest choice and manner. Also have our employees still cross-training, multitasking, being very mindful of their actions. I do see that we can come out of this economic situation that we're in the next few years. The budget that I presented here tonight, that we'll be talking about here tonight, even though on the cover sheet that I have here, I have budget 1 and 2 listed, I will actually be talking about a total of 3 of the budgets. It's all going to be left up to what the council provides me, or not I, but what the council provides this city to move forward on. You know, I'm certain everybody is aware is that we have, the council and I passed a 1 penny sales tax increase that ends in April and in May. And we need to, what I need to know tonight is exactly what funding is the city council going to provide me so we can properly work together a budget to move forward with. The 0 penny, if we were to not increase, if we were not to extend our 1 penny sales tax increase at the deadline of it, then I do see that there will definitely have to be a RIP program set up. We'll have to lay off a good number of employees that will hamper or completely eliminate some of the services that the city has been providing to our constituents, to our citizens for over the numerous years, and I do truly believe that they have become accustomed to. We have, over the last 6 to 9 months, we have been very mindful on all those services to make certain that they are being done very efficiently. They're being run to a point where it's been very cost conservative to the city, and I think the citizens are still demanding those services, the ones that we still have remaining. But if you go back to the cover sheet again on budget 2, that budget encompasses the mindset of extending our sales tax increase of a half penny through the rest of that year. And if you look down it, you will see that our community initiatives, several of those have been eliminated. We still have Chamber of Commerce will still be funded to some portion, but there will be definitely some definite deficiencies in there that I think will definitely hamper the services that we provide to the citizens of Prattville. Under budget 2, the RIP program, the RIP policy will still have to be enacted, in my opinion, and just having a estimate on it, it would probably be in effect of affecting approximately 15 employees. If you go over to budget 1, budget 1 will be increased, will be extending our 1 penny sales tax throughout that 2012 budget cycle. And with it, as you go down, you see that our community initiatives are still intact. We do have some capital outlays involved on it. For example, one of them will be our police capital outlay. With it, we actually have, if you turn over to our 3rd page, it shows a total list of all of our 2012 budget options, capital outlay. It shows everything from our vehicle maintenance, our urban management, the police, wastewater, and sanitation. But under the police, for example, I have two new police cars involved with it, with equipment. All of these capital outlays do not include, none of these include loans. All of these, if we purchase any of these capital outlays, it will be after the money has been saved up and we have cash on hand ready to purchase these items. Going back to our cover page, it shows all of our revenues on there. And in the past, I've been talking about creating enterprise funds for our wastewater and for our sanitation department. And so looking on the front cover page, it talks about our total sources of funds for our general fund, all of our expenditures, and also at the bottom it shows revenue in excess of our expenditures, both for our 1 penny and also our half penny extension of the sales tax. On the 2nd page, it shows our wastewater fund revenue, utilizing it as an enterprise fund, an in-house enterprise fund. Sanitation also will be set up as an in-house revenue as an enterprise fund, and it shows our expenditures, our revenues, also our revenue in excess of expenditures. But also I do need to remind the council that it is right now on our wastewater department. We do have some studies that we're waiting to come back on that as far as our long-term, short-term plans for that department. I also do have some plans working with the council of having some additional long-term range goals set up for both sanitation and also our IT department. Our IT department, we've been going through some changes on it right lately, and I do believe that we need to have an expert come in, give us a true analysis on that and see which direction we need to go into on it. Since our IT director had resigned, we have been doing some checks through the IT department, and we've found several areas to save. At this point in time, we've found areas amounting to at least $50,000 that we can save in that department. And I think that if we look with time, we should be able to find even more savings in that department. But those are just some examples I wanted to give to you guys for this as our cover sheet here, what direction that we're going in. As we move further on, and we have our revenue sheets here, it gives an exact amount for our ad valorem, our sales tax, our tobacco taxes, our sewer, county ambulance, and also it shows our annual budgets for our several different departments, our police grants. I know that you guys have had these documents over the weekend, and I hope you've been able to spend some time with them. And I know it hasn't been probably some of your best reading, but I do believe this packet provides a lot more information, in my opinion, than has been given to this council in one complete package since I've been on the council for over the last 7 years or so. And I hope that you guys can agree with that also. In one complete form, there's more information here to help guide us in the right direction as we move forward. Mr. Moses has pulled together, if you pull out our extended sheet here, the effects of our sales tax increase on our 2012 budget. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that, but these figures are just as black and white as they can be. These are true, accurate, honest figures before you. It does show, in my opinion, that the 1 penny sales tax increase has been very beneficial to the city of Prattville. Without it, we would have been borrowing more money, I believe, just to be making payroll. So I think the sales tax increase has gotten us to the point where we are now. Yes, sir.
Mr. President, I just see some point of clarification on the pages on.
You'll have an opportunity to come on the council.
Yes, sir.
Are you through with your presentation?
No, so give me just a couple minutes. If you move down each individual tab here, you'll see exactly where our different departments lie. You can pick and choose from one of those. With that, you actually have an actuals of 2008, 2009, 2010, and 2011. If we move further on back, it also shows our debt service, shows our community initiatives individually broken out. It also has a benefits package for all of our employees. I've been asked to bring up different options for the holiday policies that City of Prattville has. And we have 4 different options on that, besides what our current policy is. It also talks in here about our group health insurance. It talks about the retirement system, workers' compensation insurance. It also, as you go further on back, underneath our personnel tab, it gives our salary, our budget, personnel budget comparison for the prior 2 years. And as you do look over go to that page, I do want to remind the council that there is a slight increase there, but one of the reasons for that is in 2010-11 budget, we had furloughs. 2011-2012 budget, there are no furloughs. So there's one reason alone for an increase in the 2011-2012 personnel. Also, as we move further on in the back, it talks, we have separated, like I mentioned earlier, our wastewater department, our sanitation department, because we are treating that as an in-house enterprise fund. With those two separated, my main thought and purpose on separating those two departments are because those are departments that directly impact citizens day to day. Those departments collect fees. They provide services to the citizens of Prattville, and then they collect fees for those services. So that is my main goal for having those two departments separated, because that way we can give a true and accurate figure on what those fees should be charged back to the customer. Not to mention also we need a long-range 5 to 10 year or even longer plan for those departments as far as repair, replacement of our infrastructure and also equipment. But we are also, there again, waiting on studies to come back for wastewater to see exactly which direction we need to be moving in that area. But I guess that's just my general opening comment.
Before we go into the questions from the council, and we will go in descending order, I am going to ask Dr. Miller to go ahead and get his clarification on these things.
On this, where is it, October? 11 months.
October's revenues get pulled into the previous fiscal year. Doing that, but if you'll notice, September is really high, it's because it's got 2 months worth of revenue in it. I use actual numbers to do that. That's the way it is.
Councilman Fink and Councilman Argo were not able to be with us tonight. They were called out of town on business obligations. So we will start with District 6. Councilman Bowes, do you have any questions about the budget?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
First of all, I want to say congratulations to all the department heads. I went through here, and y'all know me, I'm all about the money. The first time I went through this, I thought everybody was going to have a heart attack and string me out front and hang me from the highest news. When I started talking cuts, last year I didn't quite go as hard as I did the first year. But this year, I went through every department and looked at last year's revenues, what y'all spent, and what y'all plan on spending this year. Every department, with the exception of one, has cut. Thank you. Didn't even have to ask you, you just did it. Two, I want to point out to everybody in the room, debt service. Last year, it looks like we spent $6,730,000 on debt service. This fiscal year, we budgeted $8,118,000, which is an increase in number of $1,388,000 in debt service. I'm pointing this out because it's going to flow into my next statement. I really appreciate that Bill has gave us 2 budgets to pick from, or 3. Personally, I like budget 1, keep the sales tax where it is. It's not politically correct. But we're not in a political situation here. We're in a survival situation. So I want everybody to understand that. We need the 1 cent to stay afloat and to keep our heads above water. But I like budget 2. So I'm going to ask the council to do something. Let's step out the box a little bit and let's keep the 1 cent until October. Let's go with budget 2 and save that extra. There's $1,147,000 difference between budget 1 and budget 2. Let's save that $1,100,000. But we're still not where we need to be because our debt service has grown even more than that. I'm going to ask the council that we start immediately working on a RIF program of 15 employees. 15 employees should save us about $1,200,000, give or take. Because I don't want to go back to the furlough system. at all, ever again, as long as I live. Go through that the last 6 months. In working on a REV program with budget 2, that would bring our savings to more around $2,300,000. We've already cut out $6 million from the last budget this year. We'd be around $8 million. That would cover our debt service. Along with the extra penny, would start getting our head above water so we can put some money in savings. But I want everybody to think about that idea as keeping the 1 penny but going budget 2. Because budget 2 is if we go to a half cent. But there's nothing saying we can't keep 1 cent but use budget 2 as our budget that we picked. Community initiatives are really good, but I think we could look at there and take maybe 200,000 more out on community initiatives. It's just the times we're living in. If we don't have money, we can't give it away. You know, my household's in the same situation. If I don't have it, I can't get it. So we really need to take a strong look at the community initiatives, see if we can take another 200,000 out of that. Because I'd like to take try to save $2.5 million more than where we are from the end of this fiscal year. But overall, I've been real happy with the way everything's shaping out. I really appreciate all the department heads willing to get down to the bare knuckles. And I know that's what this budget represents, bare knuckles. And it just speaks volume that every single department was down from last year. And you make our job a lot easier doing that. Thank you very much. And that's any reply on that. Boss?
Any other tabs you want to go through?
No, I'm good on all the tabs.
Okay. On a point of clarification, make sure we're all on the same page. The mayor's proposed budget number 1 is predicated on the council extending the 1% sales tax from sunset date of April 30th, 2012 to December 31st, 2012, 1%. The budget 2 is predicated on a reduction effective May 1 of 2012 going through December 31st, 2012. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. This does not go into year 2013. Dr. Melton.
So that would be, the 1 penny would be through the end of the fiscal year. Because we're only talking.
The end of the calendar year of 2012. Because our fiscal year starts again October 1.
Right, so, and I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to make sure that I understood that the extension, the budget 1 and budget 2 is for the 12 months of the fiscal year, September 30th through October 1st. Yeah, October 3rd. But anyway, it's not calendar, it's our fiscal year. So we'll be extending the current penny through the rest of fiscal year. Yeah. And same thing, if we did the half penny, the extending the 1 now, half penny for the last 2 months. We're only talking about a single fiscal year. And I guess my question is still, have we done enough, and do we really have the reassurance and the confidence that we've done enough to make sure that we have a balanced budget? And I, for one, am not quite there yet. I know you've done a lot of work, Mr. Moses has done a lot of work, and worked with the numbers and are committed to that, but I still am not there yet, that we have done enough to feel confident that we have a balanced budget. I also feel like the extension of the sales tax is something that we need to think through very carefully, because I don't know that it is being used to address the debt as opposed to keep. And I realize we've made a lot of efforts to look for efficiencies and reductions, but I don't know that it has been as dedicated to addressing debt service as it has, opposed to supplanting other funds that would go to that service. In other words, sort of just pushing things further into the future. I still am bothered about the global. I'm still bothered about the global, the national, and the state economy. Alabama's July statistics for unemployment have started to go back up. I think they hit the 10% threshold again. Most financial folks and economic experts say we're nowhere near out of the woods. I just am extremely concerned that we're pushing just sort of like kicking the can down the road. The approach to maintaining a sales tax to keep doing business as usual, a sales tax increase. And I've got some real concerns about that. We all know that human resources are one of our most largest parts of our expenditures when we look across these, and I think we all know that from the information. And the last thing I want to see is anyone lose a job. That is absolutely the last thing I think any of us want to see. But at the same time, I'm going to have to tell you that as I look through this budget over the weekend, it's still, in my mind, not convincing that we have done enough to maintain a balanced budget. And by that I mean expenditures would be on par with what they've historically been, matched to revenues without the penny that are based on historic information as well. So, and I have to apologize, we had the police interviews, we spent several hours up here last night, and this notebook would look very similar to this one. I brought the wrong one, so this one is sort of looking like Mr. Bowles, and I don't have my specific questions in front of me, but I do want to commend you for laying things out in a very nice fashion, and I do also want to second that I think this is one of the most detailed sets of information. I appreciate having options, because that sort of challenges us to think through what growth we want to take. I appreciate your sort of something they thought about, which is a hybrid of some of these proposals. But again, without getting into the detail and specific line items or objects in these various relevant to the departments, I'm still extremely worried that we don't know exactly how sound the financial footing we're on in terms of whether or not we are postponing the inevitable. I will tell you that until we get a handle on that, I don't think it's fair to the city workforce to wonder when the next shoe is going to drop. And if there's going to be the pain and the anxiety and all the other negative things that go with discussing a RIF, I for one think it's better to get all that thing over at once instead of having it dribbled out or having it percolate up every few months, every quarter, every 2 quarters. I just think that we're not doing a service to the employees or the citizens to kind of have that hanging out there because we have not gone far enough to feel good about having the city on sound financial footing. And again, I say all of that conjunction with really applauding you for your efforts to come before us with a good budget. I'm just not there yet. So that really is all I wanted to say.
Councilman Wood?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mayor and all of the department heads, thank you for what all you've done and what all you will continue to do. I know whatever decision we make, you're going to continue to do your job. This is a well put together package, and listening to my peer over there, I understand exactly where you're coming from. I share some of those same sentiments, but I also feel that a genuine effort is being made here to continue on the path that we're on. But as the mayor alluded to, the only way that we're going to be able to continue, we're going to have to continue with cost-cutting measures and increase revenue. I've said this in the past, and I say it now before we even came out with this budget. I knew that the penny needed to stay on. it'll probably need to stay on after this year, if it stays on. That's still a decision that this council has to make. I agree with Councilman Bowles that budget should be made on less revenue than actual receipt. So if you're gonna do a penny, you need to budget, if not half, but a whole lot less than what we actually gonna bring in. Looking at the 1 cent proposal down at the bottom, it says revenue in excess of expenditures 4.4 million. One of my questions is, why is it necessary to do a bridge loan November 2011 for 1.5 if there's an excess of revenue of 4.4 million? Is it because we're going to be arriving at the excess much later during the fiscal, or why is that?
It's a cash flow issue.
And if we don't have the 1 cent in place, that's a moot point about the cash flow issue. In this budget, is there money for the healthcare account listed?
It's budgeted. But it's the normal amount that we put in per month. It's around $230,000.
Additional employees, I noticed back personnel that there's a tremendous amount of requests for employees. I think we're talking about almost $800,000, am I correct? It comes to that amount. 883. Additional personnel requests. In your budget, what are you proposing there as far as additional employees to make sure I'm hearing this correct and I read it correct?
If you look at the very top of that sheet, you'll see a little asterisk, city clerk, assistant city clerk, at the very top. That is the only position I'm asking that we fill.
So out of all of the requests from all of the departments, we're still at a point where we actually can't afford to really hire anybody, even if we decide to hire this 1 city clerk, assistant city clerk.
I believe we can afford to hire this position. There's also some other, as we go through the year, if we go through some more cost-cutting measures and so forth, I hope that we will be able to come back and find areas that we can potentially replace some personnel in other departments. Because we do have, I know there's a couple of departments that are critical. They are doing everything that they can with the personnel numbers that they have. It's very difficult for them to keep up with their workload. One reason is because of the personnel number that they have lost in the last 6 to 9 months. The other one is the weather. The heat has hampered them some there. But there's also some new equipment in some of the departments that are needed. My statement earlier was that any of our capital projects, there will be no new loans. We will need to take cash for these capital projects if it's passed, or we will not have this equipment in place. But I also have some other options in here that can be construed as cost saving.
Okay. And I guess you would be talking about benefits. Your salary and wage and more benefits. On the budget option, wastewater fund, sanitation fund, are these actual revenue numbers that we're looking at here?
Yes,
Up until
that's going off of this year's revenue numbers. That's that.
Now, of course, on the wastewater fund, that has that $10 surcharge on it, and we're waiting for that study to come back so we can properly address our revenue source on that. So that could be possibly amended one way or another. Hopefully with a long-range plan, the residential rates will come down, commercial and industrial rates will probably go up, and but our revenue source should stay either steady or hopefully increase whatever needs are for that department.
One of the things that Councilman Miller mentioned earlier was that he was kind of uneasy about the money going where it needs to be. I want to make sure that, we got a 1 cent sales tax in place. All of the money that comes in from the 1 cent sales tax goes directly to debt service, all right?
Well, yes,
So that would tell me that all of the bills and payroll and everything else that we're having to meet is coming off of other revenue sources and not that additional 1 cent sales tax.
yes, but one thing I do want to remind everybody that whenever I stepped in, we had more than $2.5 million in accounts payable. It was pushing pretty close to $3 million, and we're getting a handle on those. We had some other areas that we had to take a very good hard look at and make sure that they were running. And right now, the accounts payable to vendors is somewhere around $635,000, which that is not being, accounts payable to vendors is not coming out of this 1 penny sales tax, it's just coming through our regular revenue sources. But the 1 penny increase is going straight toward debt service.
So at the bottom of option 1, 4.4 million revenue in excess of expenditures, all of that would be 1 cent sales tax money. I'm not.
Part of it.
Okay, that's why I want to get clear on what amount are we talking about. It's going to be additional.
We have the November of 2012, the big debt service payment that will be coming up is $2,985,000. So that's going to eat up a good chunk.
Okay, but I want to make sure I'm clear, the whole 4.4 is not additional money from the 1 cent sales tax. There's other revenue sources that's included in here.
Correct.
And that kind of throwing me off there, that's why I want to make sure.
If you look at on the spreadsheet that is for the effective sales tax, the additional, the anticipated revenue from the increase is $5.8 million. That's just the revenue from the 1 cent. And if you look on that sheet that I gave you, our debt service for the entire year is over $6 million. Now, if you just take out the smaller leases and bank loans, it's going to be around $5 million. So if you add that, the November loan payment into that, that more than makes up for the $6 million, $5.8 million generated from the increase.
So actually 5.8 million will be generated in a fiscal cycle.
Yes, sir.
We do have some of this debt services actually getting retired in our next big payment.
Again, I'm going to conclude, I may have something else later, Mr. Chair. I think you all have done a great job. I think everybody's done a great job. We are not out of the woods by a long shot. The budget needs to be made on less revenue than actual receiving. I don't see getting out of this any other kind of way. And that's with or without additional taxes. As we speak right here now, we're talking about an additional tax, but I don't know if we got votes up here for an additional tax. We're not voting on anything, and you're only proposing this. But as we can see, if it's not done, there's going to have to be a substantial reduction in force.
Not only that, but like I say, community initiatives, Chamber of Commerce, anything that we're not, we don't have contracts with, binding, I feel for certain that those will have to be eliminated. If we do not extend this sales tax, at least through the 2012 budget cycle there. Now, if the, decide to go, like I said, if there's no extension of the sales tax in any shape, form, or fashion, it's approximately 30 employees will have to be laid off. The council will have to give you directions to go through a good policy program, which in our employee policies and guidelines book, it does talk about the council and the mayor getting together and working out a policy on that. But to me, that's going to be very drastic. We will be eliminating quite a few services that we're providing to the citizens of Prattville. There again, I want to remind everybody here that we are a service-oriented business. We are in business to provide services to our citizens. They are paying for their services, so we need to be doing everything we can to keep those services going. In the last several months, we have cut back on some of the services that were not cost efficient, that were not being anticipated widely, largely to the community by. We have made several cuts in our fuel just by simply coming up with a no island policy. Our employees are working smarter. Their employees are stepping up to the plate. The citizens, I believe, have really not suffered with the 1 penny sales tax increase. I think that the services that the city is providing, the citizens I have talked with understand the 1 penny sales tax as long as they continue to get these services. But if the council does not direct me in exactly what revenue sources I will be receiving, then they will have to direct me in a GRIP policy, GRIP program. But I still think that we still have some more options that we can look at. Through attrition, we will lower our personnel costs through attrition. There's also been some conversation about an additional retirement package. That is something that we need to talk some more about in the very near future on that and see what ideas the council has on that. But besides a GRIP policy, GRIP program alone, there are other ways that we can lower our personnel costs. When I'm up here, I do want to go ahead and say that early on in our first budget that I presented to the council, I asked for the 3 T's, which was the time, the tools, and the talent. And for the amount of time that we have been under the gun here, it just has not been enough time for us to get out of where we are to where we want to be. We have had great strides to get here. I can only have horror stories or nightmares about where we would be if we had not turned the ship in the direction that we're going. But we have turned the ship. We just need to hold the course, provide the services, and move ahead. So I need direction from the council on that.
There's a lot of money in here to meet MPO obligations. Correct.
Yes, sir.
And if the additional either half-cent sales tax or even 1 cent sales tax is not in place, there's no way we're going to be able to do any of those projects.
So now the MPO, all of that money that's in there is coming from our fuel paving tax money.
There's enough money to meet our obligation part of that.
Yes, sir. Matter of fact, if you look, in the budget, it only shows MPO numbers. But if we have another sheet in there, it actually gives you direction on the locations for all those projects. And it also shows the amount of the project, the amount that the federal government would favor for we're putting out the amount of money that the city is putting out. Now, those projects do not have to be done. And there again, just like the capital projects, if we do not have the tax dollars coming in for that, for the MPO projects, they will not be done. We are being very mindful of the dollars as they come in, and mentioned earlier before too that we at one point in time, I think I utilized the phrase cash flow is king. You know, we're still trying to have that culture change and mentality change that it pretty much, if we do not have the cash flow, if we do not have the dollars, we're not spending. I guess one example I could give you is that in the budget that we're working on now, there were a couple other items in it, programs in it that were approved by the council. We have not done those programs. We have not done those projects because of not having the cash flow. But just because it's here in this budget does not mean that it will be done. This is a guideline, a roadmap. As revenue comes in, then we will have those projects done.
This being an election year, I know we're gonna have to spend quite a bit more money for the election year. And some of the requests, along with yours, I don't know the council wishes, but if I'm not mistaken, I think you stated that you just wanted to bring somebody from another department, which is a great thing, and we can do that. Bring somebody request, someone to transfer. That will more than likely have to have someone in there to help with those obligations coming up to that election. Again, like I said, I think you all have worked hard. I think everybody's working hard, but we got a long way to go. And it's just room to look for more cuts. I appreciate what you all have done. If you got something else to say later, I'll say it.
And I totally agree. There's still room, and we're still working daily. I know I have talked with a couple other council members about a personnel move that I have been working on. Just for example, the sanitation department, they have in the past have had a receptionist, somebody to answer the telephone, because it's very difficult for somebody when they're actually working the trucks and working the routes. Just don't have anybody there to answer the phone, just complaints or compliments come in. We're down one person in our judicial system. I have another person that I have started getting in the motion to transfer from one department to come move over to the City Hall department, City Hall building itself, so that way they can answer the phones for sanitation, also do some clerical work for judicial, also, pretty much a multitasking person. This one person will actually technically take the place of about 3 people. So will that impact the bottom line of the budget? No, because we're not hiring anybody, period. But it will also increase the production of these departments and also provide communication and services to our citizens. We by no means think that we're out of this tunnel yet. We're still working hard. We're still looking for cuts. And that's one reason in this budget I also have, I talked earlier about having an analysis going of our IT department and see what are the areas that we can cut in that area. So whenever I took over this position, I knew there was a couple of areas that I knew I needed to look at very closely. And I guess it's just like even around our own household. From time to time, it never hurts for us to step back and look and say, what exactly do I want, and what exactly do I need, and what exactly can I do? And that's exactly what we're doing at City Hall. But I do need some more time. I do need the talent, and I do need the resources.
Councilman Strickland.
Thank you.
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I too express appreciation to all of you department heads that provided input into this document. I think it's somewhat well known. The first one of the budget that I saw, I thought it was a telephone book. It just had a name and a number, and there were 8 pages to it. So I appreciate the information that has been provided. I also appreciate the time that Mr. Mosley spent with me this morning. I had some concerns about the current year before I wanted to jump into trying to figure out what was going to happen next year. And these are some questions that ultimately will go to our external auditors and CPAs. That in the business world is an issue called a timing difference and a concept of materiality. And I think both of those have a point and a place in what we're doing. And Dr. Miller's question was one of those that I asked what happened in October, and I had two sets of numbers. Mr. Mosley had another one, and then with the explanation, it's understood that it could be anything. And so I believe that there's an opportunity that some of the, at least there's a potential that some of the things we're doing is costing us money and time and labor, that maybe there's a better way to do that and still achieve what we're trying to get. To fellow councilmen and the two department heads that are impacted, I want you to know that I support the concept of the enterprise funds. I borrowed a book and looked at it and read some information about it. I like the idea that revenue coming in from one area is placed into one checking account. The expenses that are related to that, delivering that good or service, come out of that department, come out of that checking account. Lease payments come out of it, debt, maintenance, operating supplies, payroll. At the same time, there's an opportunity for a fair billing to occur between other city departments, and there's a need for administrative overhead to be paid by that department. I also like the idea that at the end of the month, you saw what went in, you saw what came out, and it's supposed to be in the black. If it's not, then immediately you know that there's an issue. It's not commingled with other accounts or funds of the city that may take months before someone figures out that we've got an issue here. So I like that opportunity. The area that I have a concern that I've expressed to the mayor, Mr. Mosley, and to some fellow councilmen is that the resources that go into those accounts are to be used exclusively for the use of that department. And I would hate to see what would seem to be maybe an extra $1 or $2 sitting in that account to be rated by this council, the finance committee, or any entity that might have that authority to do so. I think those funds should stay there, and from a wastewater department issue with 250 miles of pipe that has to be examined, that nickel's not going to go all the way to the end of the 250 miles. So I think we're fooling ourselves if we think there's excess revenue sitting out there. But I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that I'm aware that I don't want the fund to be rated improperly for uses that are not truly associated with providing that good or service to the city. And so at some point between the department head and the mayor, those areas will need to be addressed. I do thank you for the clarification of the sales tax. In effect, you're only asking for an additional 8 months from where it expires to where you want it to end in the future. Essentially from April 30th to the end of well, it was, yeah, no, well, December the 31st. Well, that's 8 months. If it's not, it's going to be less than 8 months. So that's,
I'll take what I can get if I can get an extension.
I understand that.
If I'm asked, I would prefer that it go through the calendar year. And then potentially after that calendar year, when we go into January through September, I would ask that the half-penny extension be done. In other words, bring it from 9.5, have it be 9.5 all the way through that calendar year. And then if we get in January around through September, drop it down to a half-penny.
Budget figures that you presented to us relative to this year.
Correct.
I also concur with my fellow councilman that while we have several opportunities to deal with human resources and personnel issues here, my personal preference would be that we work through all of them and present them as a package to the employees so that there is an understanding for what's going to happen the next year. And you said there's not one week we do this and the next week we do something else or we act on something else. So I would encourage the council to consider that also. The calculations for 2012, from what I read based on a footnote, are based on a 2% growth factor. Going back to your comment, we shouldn't budget more than we're planning on, or what we're taking in. There ought to be some reduction to that. I'm not sure that I feel comfortable with a growth of 2% in everything that's happening in Prattville, Alabama. The only 2% increase I'm seeing is in bankruptcies. That's not been real helpful. I also feel that the concept that we've been looking at is the budget, revenue in, revenue out. But to get a more complete financial picture, you need a balance sheet of an organization. And that shows the assets and the liabilities. And the liabilities being the debts that we owe in different time periods. And I think that would be helpful in showing not only us, but the citizens of Prattville, the progress that has been made, that we are able to reduce some of our debts over a period of time. And I'm appreciative of the debt information that I got a few minutes ago. But again, on where we were at the end of the year or beginning of the year and where we have progressed throughout the year, I think would be helpful and positive news that should be shared. Also, I think that we need to develop, as was mentioned earlier, the idea of how we're going to spend that extra dollar that comes in. Where is the priority for putting these dollars that we have that may be shown as a projected revenue in excess of expenditures? That we obviously have some debt that could be paid or prepaid. We have liabilities that could be made current. Possibility of paying out a lease or an invoice or something earlier than scheduled. I think there needs to be a plan in place so that it doesn't just go out the door as soon as it comes in. In the earlier discussion on that side of the table, I concur with the thought. I did not support the current budget that we have, and the reason being, I did not feel that we were doing enough as a city before we ask our citizens to pay additional tax. If the council agrees to extend the tax, I think there needs to be some commitment on the city's behalf that we will continue making cuts and reductions. Otherwise, it will seemingly only fall on the citizens who are paying the taxes. And I'm not asking for a dollar amount today or a percentage relationship, I'm just saying, is something that we should think about, that we're asking the citizens of Prattville to pay additional revenue that we as a city should be willing to commit to working towards creating reductions. I also think that, going back to the old cash flow statement concept, that if we had one, as crude and elementary as it might be, that this additional excess revenue, we could see where it was going to fall, if it did fall, what time period, and that would give us a better grasp of what's happening versus just looking at what we believe to be a snapshot picture of one day, 365 days down the road. Thank you for your.
Well, you're working with information. Like I said, we did work really, really hard to get all this information up. And that is, I think, in the past, this information I have not seen before. So we have not actually collected it. As far as I know, this information has not truly been collected in this manner. The computer software programs we have do not have it all tallied up, so we can just go click a couple of buttons and pull it up. But we are working toward working out a roadmap, like you're asking, to show us some of these figures in the future. Now, the one thing I will go ahead and say is that I do agree with you on the sales taxes, and also the wastewater surcharges and the garbage fees that have gone up for the last couple 3 years or so. We do need to be accountable to all of our citizens. We are a service-oriented business, but I am also a citizen, so I am also a customer of the city. And I do believe that sitting up here over the last 9 months or so, we have definitely been doing what you've been asking here. We have been made more accountable. We have been checking, we've been having a lot more checks and balances put at us than we have had in the last 6 or 8 years that I know of. As we do move forward, I think that you will see that we're still looking behind every rock, underneath every leaf, trying to find any and every cost-saving measure that we can. Now, there are some areas that we can, as a mayor and the staff that I have, that we can reduce our costs. But now there's other areas that I will have to have directions from the council to move forward on that. I mentioned earlier about the RIF program. That is, best in my understanding, we, at this point in time, have done everything the mayor and the staff can do to reduce our personnel costs. We are still looking at some areas, workman comp, mostly insurance areas. We're looking at cell phone areas, see how we can reduce our costs in that. We're still working very diligently on that. We're spending night and day practically, because we have spent quite a few hours down at City Hall looking over every line item that we can find. And we negotiated numerous contracts. Lisa Thrash, Doug Mosley, myself. I think I found more cuts than Doug had, but we'll have a tally sheet up on that later on. But we are definitely, in my opinion, moving in the right direction. The enterprise fund that you mentioned about earlier, thank you for supporting that. In time, to me, that will also, whereas it will not lower our bottom line number, but it will lower our general fund number because, as you mentioned earlier, once we get it completely enacted, whenever finance, human resources, IT, vehicle maintenance, you name it, whenever wastewater or garbage has anything, sanitation has any kind of connection with that other entity, then that amount will come out of their shoebox, so to speak, and will then go back into the general fund to help pay the personnel costs of the mentioned part. So I think that the enterprise fund is the direction that we do need to be heading in. But it will take some time there before we can finally see a cost saving there. We have not truly implemented it yet. We're just now getting the early stages of that. So we feel like it's the beginning of next year it should be implemented, and that way we will have our own little shoe boxes for those, but that will take time. I do see quite a few more cuts out there that we can make in some departments, but there again, through attrition, through proper management, we're moving in that right direction. There again, what I've asked the council is please give me directions on what type of revenue source can I anticipate for this upcoming year. Is it going to continue with the same 1 penny sales tax we have through May, or is it going to extend through the whole budget year? I need that direction so we can move forward. Also, if the council wishes are to move forward with the RIP program, I need to have directions on that. But one other area I think that we do need to look at, because I've had numerous questions from numerous council members, to look at our benefit package. That is something that has been discussed numerous times. And I know you have asked for it to be put all in one inclusive package. I don't know, maybe this isn't exactly how you meant it, but in one section of here, it does have several different options in the holiday package. I guess technically there'd be 5 options there. What we have now, plus 4 more options on there. Our group health, my plan for the group health is to go off the recommendation of the employee committee for group health, which is to go up $25 a month per contract. But also, if the employee goes through the annual health risk assessment, we give them a $25 discount for that. I truly believe that that health risk assessment will actually pay dividends back for the city. The health insurance area for us has been very stable since we have taken over this type of program. Now, it is something, like you mentioned earlier with the enterprise fund, it is something that does need to be managed properly, and we are doing that. Help with Lisa Thrash, Doug Mosley, and myself, we're monitoring it very closely. I also have plans to have some information put on the employees' newsletter so that they can be kept aware of it. Because I know that is something that's been brought up numerous times. Because like I mentioned before, this is not our money, this is the employees' package money. So we need to be very mindful of that. It's also been asked of me about pulling together some retirement options with the retirement system of Alabama. So we have that in front of us. The cost and benefit from the employee to the city. So those, as far as I'm aware, those are the 3 options that we have before us. If there's any other additional information needed, we'll be willing to get it for you. But my recommendation is that on the health care, which is what I spoke of just recently, is go up on the $25 per month increase on that, but do have them go through the assessment if they so desire. If not, then they can pay the $25. That's the option there. I do not believe that it takes council action on that. I believe that is an internal policy that I can handle, but I do want the council, the employees, and the citizens of Frederick to know what my plans are on that. Now, when it gets down to the holidays, that is something that will take council action on that. We do have some figures on it. Now, previously, it has not been budgeted. And now it is budgeted. That is one reason, pretty much that's $500,000 increase in the budget that when it goes down to the bottom line, just because it had not been budgeted in the past. Technically, it's $478,693.60. But if you look through your
That's
different
as is, Mayor. As it stands
as
right
it
now.
stands right now, that is per our policy book. Then you have these different options that I've been asked to pull together, 4 different ones, and it can lower that amount to $193,000 rounded off. can make it $195,000, $268,000 or $265,000. Lower from the original $480,000. But that is some guidance that we need to know what is the council's wishes on that. Do we proceed forward with what we have now? It has not been budgeted in the past, but it is budgeted now. And if you look at our personnel number, whenever we started pulling this together, and we do have a history here, that in the past, in 09, 2010, our personnel cost was $20,584,000. And then last year, or I should say this year, 2010, 2011, $19.5 million. This proposed budget is $19,582,000. So it's only gone up a slight amount. And two reasons why it's gone up is because of furloughs for this year and also holidays that have not been budgeted. So I'm actually surprisingly pleased with the small amount of increase that we have there. But it's left up to the council what options they want to take on these, on the holidays and also the retirement. I need some guidance there. And that way, hopefully at the next council meeting, I can provide one single budget for you guys to be in. So that way I can present a budget to the council. That way you guys can look through it, dissect it, increase it, decrease it, as you so desire, and give it back to me and my staff, so then that way we can run the city, provide the services that these citizens demand and desire.
Any other questions, comments for the mayor or Councilman Gold?
Councilman Strickland referred to cash flow analysis, and I think I heard you bring that up from time to time, maybe multiple times over the past, since you came on board, earlier this year. But why has it been so difficult to get that?
We've actually got a current year cash flow statement that I worked with Mr. Strickland on, and we do that monthly, and I provide that. I think what he was speaking to is like a future, forward-looking cash flow statement, so we can kind of see in the future what kind of.
Efforts have been made, but there's opportunity for improvement.
Okay, and I say all that because I really have been extremely impressed with your banking background and your financial acumen. You brought a skill set to this body, that has really served us well. And I hear you bring that up, and it just caught my attention. It's the same sort of thing I've heard you, both in written and verbal fashion, made that request multiple times. So it doesn't seem like we quite ever get there, but it sounds like it would be a great tool to help me, I guess in particular, when I keep sharing that I don't know that we've gotten there yet. And we've learned a lot tonight, questions, comments, different perspectives that we did, and it's going to help me to be able to go back and go through this again. And I just still have to tell you how concerned I am that we're going to be here, with this extension of the 1 penny over and over and over and over again, because we have not made the challenging and difficult decisions that perhaps we should make earlier than later. And I just have some real angst over that, and I apologize if I sound like a broken record, but I just think that we're going to keep on pushing things down the road because we're unable or unwilling to make some difficult decisions at this juncture. I don't have any confidence right now that the economy is going to turn around anytime soon. In state government, everybody's talking about how 2013 is going to be a really, really tough year. There's $250 million that's one-time 2012 money that's not going to be there. The economy hasn't turned around. I mentioned it in Strickland earlier. Mr. Strickland mentioned bankruptcies. You know, I talked to a lady in real estate last night, and he said the next big tidal wave is the foreclosures. You know, and it's on every turn that you see that sort of stuff. So I'm not, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that you have, and I know you have looked under every rock and under every leaf, and you have done a yeoman's job. But I don't know that all of those things yet add up to be enough when you step back and look at the whole picture. And I don't think it's wise to live on the edge, hoping that these small incremental things are going to add up enough. I would much rather put us on solid financial footing to the degree that we can, earlier than later, because that just positions us to have a sound, fiscal approach. And it's not lost on me that citizens expect and deserve premier city services, but at the same time, if we are coming up to the edge of the cliff, they're not going to be happy at all on what's on the other side. If we do have to make some of those tough decisions, because we cut them off, they're much bigger, much more catastrophic than they would be if we had made some smaller, less impactful decisions earlier on. So I apologize for saying that.
Well, I appreciate your comments. I value your bring quite a bit to the table. I value your friendship. I consider everybody sitting up here a friend and an ally. We have moved. I think we have almost moved a mountain in these last 7 to 9 months of what we have done. There again, we're still providing a good service to the citizens, and that's something I have to keep hammering home. We are a service-oriented company, so with the cuts that we have made, we have made leaps and bounds of where we were. Are we there yet? By no means. Have we stopped? Are we sitting on our laurels? No, sir. We're moving forward. We're still providing those services the best that we can, but we still need the time, we still need the talent, and we still need the tools. So without you giving those to me, without giving the directions on what are we going to do with benefits, what are we going to do with revenues, tell me what I can expect, and I can tell you what product I can deliver. But now, if you do want a GRIP program enacted, we're going to go off of this, and you're going to give me guidelines on what to do there. That's what this meeting is mostly about, giving me guidance on what direction this council wants to take the city in. I truly believe that we stay with this, the extension of the 1 penny. Extension of the 1 penny, that we will have a balanced budget. As I mentioned earlier, even though we have 300, rounded off $345,000 worth of capital outlay. Those projects, those capital outlays will not be spent until that money is in hand. The MPO projects, the paving projects, those will not be accomplished until the money is in hand from the repaving tax dollars. So we're very mindful of the cash flow. Cash flow is king, is our mentality, but it will take more time for us to move forward with this. If the council see fit that a GRIP program is the only way for us to move forward, give me directions. We can handle it. But right now, with the revenue sources intact, we can make it. If not, we would not have presented, we would not have put this before. But I do need to know what direction, because in most budget cycle years, you know what revenue has come from you in the past, because it's been a sales tax or or whatever type of tax it is that you generate revenue off of. It has been there for a whole fiscal year. And in this area right now, it's being cut off halfway through. So tell me, is the tax going to be extended, or is it going to be cut off? We have some plans for that, but I need directions.
I would like to go ahead and ask Council President Vinegar to, let's put a committee together to look into the RIF program. And let's go ahead and start down this road, because it's a road we've got to walk now. I'd ask that Albert Strickland, Councilman Strickland would be on it, myself and yourself, because me and Albert.
Actually, we already have a committee in place. That is a personnel issue. The personnel falls under finance. The finance committee pursues, the responsibility falls to the finance committee for any personnel action.
Yeah. Where are y'all on there? Y'all need to get on it. We got less than a month before this thing hits, and we need to have some direction from the finance center. Please, I'm begging you.
I need clarification. You begging us, but what are you begging us for?
So let's look at the RIF program. Let's figure out, get with the department heads. Sit down with every single department head and say, okay, we are at our last road. Who can you do without? Starting with you, can you do without yourself? Because I know in my business, I've got a list of who goes first and who goes last, and I'm last. Everybody should have their list, who goes when in this economy. And that's how you survive the economy. And the ones that haven't survived the economy is because they let emotions get involved and they won't do what's necessary to survive the oncoming slump. And we've got to go down this road. I know nobody wants to do it. It's not easy to walk in and tell a man he doesn't work for you anymore. That's done a good job. We have got to look at this road and take it very, very serious and start talking to the department heads and getting all this stuff and giving these employees a heads up what's coming down so they can get their financials in order and start looking for it. And that's y'all's thing. That's the committee. Y'all need to man up and let's do it.
We will address that.
Go down the dollar.
Well, let me just add to that, we got committees in place for a lot of different things. You all take our recommendations, sometimes you don't. Let me throw one out there. Liquor license. Committee come back with a recommendation, throw it in the trash can. It doesn't matter what type of recommendation that we make, each one of us got one vote. So besides the RIF program, there are several other things that the mayor has alluded to that each council member needs to be looking at. If I heard correctly. So besides the RIF program, if we're going to really hit this hard, we need to look at benefits package. I think I heard you say you need some guidance from the council, not a council committee, but from the council. So there are several areas. So all of us, as one person who makes one vote, needs to help give him some guidance along with what you're requesting that this finance committee do. As far as, I think he got 4 different scenarios in there for benefit. One of them saved $300,000 or $400,000. So we all need to be looking at giving them some guidance on extra cuts.
Well, one thing I would like to go ahead and say again is that we are a service-oriented company. And if we're going to provide these services, we have to have personnel. If we have the 1 penny extension through the rest of that year, I still believe that we can provide the services, still have a balanced budget. We're still looking at different ways to have cuts, to help cut our expenditures. Right now, you know, it's the community initiatives that you're talking about eliminating can be very devastating to the community. I gave you one example, swimming pool right here behind us. There's not enough personnel that really initially set up for lifeguards and so forth on it. Now, when that was initially talked about, nobody seemed to have a problem. And as it really got enacted, that's when a lot of phone calls were made, and I think that the mindset was changed some. So please be very careful. Once you, I guess, say, draw the line in the sand, it's going to be very difficult to erase it. But Prattville, when I was, had been at some different meetings and so forth, talking, and they asked me what the difference in Prattville is between Montgomery and some other areas. I said, well, Montgomery's got a lot of bigger and better buildings, maybe. They definitely got more buildings. So I've always thought, I thought it was the people in Prattville that make the difference. Please be very mindful on these cuts.
Okay, now, not to be to bring up a dead horse, but 2 years ago, in my first budget meeting, when I asked to do these cuts that we're forced to do, there was a lot of colorful adjectives describing me for bringing that up and asking the tough decision, let's cut it now. And I hate to say it, I was right. I was dead on what I was talking about. And I do see it through a different way because I run my own business. And I'm seeing it today, we're not far enough. We're nowhere near far enough. In 2 years, I don't want to be sitting here again saying, I tried my best to get y'all to do this 2 years ago, and I couldn't get anybody to listen to me. I'm to the point of begging. Please listen to me on this one.
Through attrition, we will, historically, through attrition, we have lowered our personnel numbers. We have a hiring freeze in place now.
But nobody's quitting. There's no job.
We had one to resign last week.
We need 15 more. We don't have a year. Wait on that 15. We got money. And unfortunately, I'm not on the board that can make it happen.
Yes, you are.
Well, I am, but I'm not
City
on,
council.
I'm not on the finance committee.
Again, the main reason for this, in my opinion, for this meeting tonight was to give you guidance on what we were going to do with our sales tax, and these other options that I put before you.
Well, I do appreciate everything you've done. Doug, you've done an outstanding job. This is just worlds different from when I walked in the door. Thank y'all.
Anything else for this one? Councilman Strickland, Councilman Wood, Councilman Miller, anything
Hey,
else?
just a quick one, this, and fire has the existing, not the draft proposal account, it's got existing.
Yes.
Ambulance contract, existing.
Yes.
All right. First of all, thank all of you for being here. I know it's been a long night, and I appreciate you sticking with us. This is my 16th budget as a city councilman. And I will tell you this, I've worked hard on all of them, but I've never worked as hard on any one of them except until this one. I'm intimately involved in this particular budget. It's been painful for the last, almost a year now? Maybe a little bit longer, seems like a decade. And it's going to be more painful. It is. I mean, we're still going to feel some pain. The statistics I hear is new house recovery probably won't start until 2016, and the economy, the stock market, won't start fully recovering until 2020. We got some tough times ahead of us. Now, I will share this with you. I have today submitted to the mayor for his review and consideration a proposed reduction in personnel cost. And I've asked him to cap personnel costs to 55% of the total operating budget. And I know this is not going to happen right away, but over the next fiscal year, I expect that to happen, and we can come to a meeting of the minds with the council and the executive department on that. Also, there are some specific adjustments that I have mentioned to the mayor that's under his consideration. I like budget 1 with the full 1% increase. I do appreciate and understand the, as Dr. Miller said, hybrid idea that Councilman Bowes suggested. But basically, we can't make a decision on this until the budget, one budget, is formally proposed to us by the mayor. Thank you for your ideas. Thank you for all the hard work you did going through these proposals. A lot of good information has been brought forward. A lot of things need to be considered. And, Mr. Bowles, you don't have to ever beg me for anything. All you have to do is let me know what you need. If I can, I'll help. Thank you, folks. That brings the work session to a close.